Hello, and welcome to another Power On Podcast 00Status. I'm one of your hosts, Taylor. Not really a very well-known Taylor, but Taylor nonetheless. And with me is the I don't know, Sushi B. I can't really think of
That's
a good
right.
descriptor word for you.
I don't need any specific adjectives today.
I was going to say venerable. Venerable was the only one that was.
I think that one's come up several.
I think I said it enough.
It's been worn out. needs something else. I'm doing well, Agent 553. How are you? I think I'm going to hang on to that one a little bit longer.
There you go. That's fine. I'm doing all right. I'm doing well. It's been kind of like off and on rainy today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been kind of one of those like, oh, it's rainy, and then 20 minutes later, oh, it's sunny, and then 2 hours later, oh, it's rainy, oh, it's downpouring rainy, and then half an hour later, it's kind of just sort of just kind of like a misty rain. It's been all over the place for rain and stuff. So lovely Midwestern weather. We're having a field day today.
Better than a heavy monsoon, constant, on and off or whatever.
For sure. What they say around these parts is that they if you don't like the weather, just wait 30 minutes, and stuck true to form today.
I think that's used in a lot of places.
Probably.
It's funny. I've met a lot of people from different places, and that seems to be a pretty common phrase. And it's they want to address it as if it's this very specific to where they're from or where their parents are from or what have you. It just seems way more common a phrase than I think it goes beyond just that one area that they're from or what have you.
I was going to say it's just that innate jealousy towards San Diego, where it's like sunny and 68 all year round. Yeah.
Well, one day I plan on retiring somewhere it'll be nice like that. So I don't know when, but someday out there. Yep.
So yeah, as I say,
speaking of sunny and beach scenes and
right, we have what would we call this? Is this I know it comes out before it, but would this be like the aquatic moonraker?
Yeah, it did strike my mind briefly that the sequence late in the film is pretty much replicated by Moonraker. Not with exactly, but
less
very
brutality.
In this one or in Moonraker?
No, Moonraker is much less on the brutal scale, where this one is pretty brutal.
Yeah, there's definitely some scenes where not really bloody or anything. This is still 1965, but I know what you mean, right? Whereas Moonraker is probably shooting for I think we said they were looking for like the Star Wars crowd and stuff, so they wanted to probably make it a little toned down from the violence. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're going over Thunderball.
Yep.
And by golly gee, I don't know. We had talked about this a little bit beforehand, that you thought that we had already watched this and meant to do and either did a recording or meant to do a recording and got lost in the ether or something.
I definitely watched this because after watching it, I was, oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, well, that's about halfway through. I'm like, yeah, no, we did watch this. I just don't remember the recording whatsoever. And I was like, oh boy,
I don't either. that one definitely got lost under the waves of the ocean or something. But after watching it, I thought, yeah, a lot of this came back to mind and thinking, yeah, I've definitely watched this recently.
And I don't know if it's just because it's coming on the heels of watching the previous one, which was A View to a Kill,
Mhm.
or what, but I actually didn't mind it so much. I'll just come out and say that. Like, it was just kind of, it didn't, I don't know if it was, truth be told, I had to pause the movie a few times because I was doing laundry.
Okay.
so I don't know if just those little
Keeping with the
breaks,
aquatic theme.
right. But I don't know if those breaks helped or
Mm,
something and just kind of kept it from being, it wasn't like I paused it and was gone for an hour or something. I just
mm.
literally paused it to,
Stepped away and came back.
right.
Yep.
So, but I don't know if that was just enough to break it up to keep it from being too much of a drag.
Mhm.
But yeah, it even if a quarter of the film script is underwater, it didn't really feel that bogged down.
Mhm. Yeah, this movie is for me, I found that this movie is the most basic Bond formula. It's very straightforward, and it doesn't really try too hard in a lot of ways to reinvent the wheel and whatnot. And it's in some ways that's really good. It's really focused. It can get the job done. In others, it leaves you wanting a bit more in other ways, I suppose.
Yeah, that's actually a really good assessment of it. It hits the beats, doesn't really try to be overly complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the the real head scratcher, and I guess this is for me because I'm not like a big modern history kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm not, but Miami and
The Bahamas.
in the Bahamas, right? But like just the fact that they go after Miami, um, and Miami Vice, and like
Mm-hmm.
what was it about the middle of the 19th, 1900s, 20th century that made Miami such a focus point that seems to have just drifted away
I don't
after
know.
the 80s. I don't know if that was something you kind of thought of or anything, but I was
No,
just
I
kind of,
didn't actually. I didn't
it
think,
just
didn't
sort of,
really hit me.
yeah, it just sort of pinged in my brain when I was watching. I was like, why Miami? Like that just, not to say it'll be like, just okay, it gets nuked, whatever, hands up in the air. But it
Mm-hmm.
just, but there just seemed a bit more of focus. And it's like, well, it is close to the Bahamas, so I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That didn't really hit me. One thing that did hit me about this movie that I thought was interesting as well is just that I think this movie really sets the template for lots of what the formulaic motions of Bond will become. It definitely happens in the first three films where it really sets a lot of the world building and what the character is portrayed as, in at least in the film sense. And this movie hits a lot of the stereotypes that the spoofs really like to joke about and stuff. I found a lot of connections back to this movie, more so somewhat to Goldfinger as well, but really to this movie. And I thought that was interesting as I reflected after watching it.
I wonder if that's because it's like, all right, you've done this enough.
Mm-hmm.
You think of trying to stir the pot and mix it up a little bit, but
Maybe I don't know, but it just we'll get into it, and maybe a few things will trigger. Like I don't know how many types of spoof spy movies and stuff you've seen, but just the sort of, there has to be a gimmick with the main villain, right? And here we have Largo with the eye patch, and just and then I know Austin Powers really rips off this movie in a lot of senses with the, okay, you have the eye patch thing where he's playing cards,
sharks
the sharks, yeah. There's a lot of callbacks specifically to Thunderball for some reason. I don't know why specifically to this movie, but the chair gag right in Austin Powers where he's like, I'm badly burnt, but I'm still alive. And then they come down and shoot. Oh, you're here to help me. And then they shoot it. He says something, you shot me in the leg. Like you hear the gunfire, but it didn't kill him. That was like a pre like super well-known Will Ferrell at that point.
Oh,
But
that's right.
that gag,
Yeah.
right? That is Will Ferrell. He's wearing like that fez and that really
Right.
bad makeup. I think he's
Because I think
supposed
it
to
was
be
around
from
the
the Middle
same
East
time
or
he was on
something.
SNL and did like the Night at the Roxbury skit
Something,
and all
yeah.
that
So
kind
I
of
think
stuff. Yeah.
he was supposed to be like a Moroccan agent or something. I don't know
Mm.
what it was supposed to be, but it was just dumb. But anyway, so there are some callbacks to this movie that those two have a lot of parallels, but I just feel as a whole, there's a lot of that sort of, oh yeah, we need to have this if we're going to kind of spoof the Bond franchise or what spy movie would be like.
Hmm. I was just say, yeah, I haven't watched tons of spoofs
Mhm.
off of spy stuff, so I definitely would not have been like, oh yeah, connection here. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, this is a wink and a nod for this one here. Yeah, I would
Spy,
have
have you seen Spy Hard?
never. Nope.
So Spy Hard is I don't know what year exactly, probably late 90s, and it's Leslie Nielsen. So
Okay.
it's really slapstick. But the intro to that movie is exactly the same intro as this movie with the swimming ladies and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And there's just like I haven't seen it in a long time, but and Weird Al does the theme song, and but he sings it like he's Tom Jones. It's actually pretty funny. It's clever. I remember it being pretty funny, but I can't remember if there's like cannonballs flying. I can't remember exactly. Now I have to watch it, but
Okay.
they spoof this intro as well. So
Huh.
yeah, so I think there's a few callbacks specific to Thunderball, and I'm not hitting all of the beats for sure, but there are definitely some more out there, and I don't know why this happens to be the one, but this seems to be also a movie where we really get, as I said, the stereotypical um, cookie cutter sort of, this is what a Bond movie should have. It should have these elements.
Well,
And
it's
we
cookie cutterness, but also just maybe the fever pitch,
Mhm.
probably at that point. Maybe even if the first few are doing well,
Yep.
it's like all of a sudden, oh, it's a big thing. Oh my goodness. And
Yeah.
now I mean, it could be that as well. It could be the just that enough of a time gap between the first film being released and then this one to where the people that are in that age that just aren't, oh, you're a little too young, how they're old enough now. And
Right. Well, plus these movies came out in quick succession. So
Mhm.
you could be right about that. That Thunderball could have been, people probably did see one, two, like the first three up to this
Mhm.
point. Um, but by this point, maybe they were catching up, right? Maybe they had
Mhm.
seen, you'd have to see these in a theater, right? You wouldn't have been able to rent these on any sort of home video
Right.
aspect, or you
No
had to see them in a
blockbuster.
theater. So maybe this by word of mouth, Goldfinger, Thunderball being the third and fourth movies, maybe by that time, people will, oh, okay. If they hadn't seen the first two, yeah, this is a fever pitch sort of still lingering. Because I heard Goldeneye was like things, or sorry, Goldeneye, Goldfinger is when things really exploded for
Right.
the interest in the franchise. Because I remember seeing like toys from the 60s that were from Goldfinger, DB8 toys like for the car and stuff,
Mhm.
um, and there's certainly a continuation of this connection to that because we have the same car in it and um, so forth. But probably the most out of the six Connery films, this is probably the most skin he shows. He's pretty much like shirtless several scenes, right? Or even in Doctor No, there was some scenes of him diving and stuff, but this one he's just walking around in trunks like several
As
times. And
from because I this is and I told you this, but like this is another one that I watched the making of Thunderball. It looked like they were just having maybe a smidgen too much fun.
okay, I mean, that's not a bad thing, at least if you want to have people having a good time on set rather than it just be a
Right,
slog.
right. Yeah, that's true. But it seemed it was very like yeah, they were from
Shenanigans were
looks.
had.
I wouldn't necessarily shenanigans because it actually seemed like Connery was pretty intent on keeping things like not going off the rails
Okay.
because he only allowed one interview and that was with Playboy.
Okay.
And especially back then, Playboy was yeah, it still had the stuff, but the interviews were that's why the joke You know,
Yeah, the
oh,
joke
I
about,
read,
oh, I read
you
for
know,
the interviews. Yeah.
interviews. Like they actually had some pretty
Yep.
interesting interviews, or like mm, what's the word I want to use? Like in this case, just he only allowed that interview to happen.
They had the scoop kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Then he also worked with Terrence Young to like keep things from going too silly,
Mhm.
but also so he can do his job and whatnot.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not to say that he didn't do his own sort of nonsense as well, but I think
Mhm.
he I think he realized that okay, we're here in the Bahamas, and Terrence Young is a bit more of a partier director.
Mm.
So
He likes to
it's
keep
like
things
he likes to keep things fluid, we'll
okay.
say,
Fair enough.
with the liquors.
Okay, and he,
And
as he's not also unfamiliar with the franchise, right? He had worked with Connery and the producers and stuff. What was it, Doctor
mhm,
No and From Russia with Love? He had done.
I believe so. Yeah.
So it's not as if he was unfamiliar with um, just the franchise and the expectation, but I'm sure the expectation had grown a lot since those first two movies to this one, especially with
Right.
Goldfinger being such a cultural phenomenon by that point.
Mhm.
So Terrence Young, by the way, apparently was born in Shanghai, which is interesting. I don't know the whole backstory behind it, but that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I did not know that.
I did not know that either. So not originally, at least. But why don't we jump into this plot, or if you want to veer into something else? But
No, we could lead on.
well, as we already alluded to, this movie has a pretty straightforward plot. There isn't a lot of. I was thinking about From a View to a Kill to this. How well, I remember us in our assessment of that, we were saying, well, there's this whole part of the movie, and a good chunk of the movie is focused on that horse racing aspect, and this kind of, I don't know, secondary plot pieces and so forth. This
Mhm.
movie doesn't really have that. It's pretty much just, okay, Largo has this plan. He wants to
Number
hold
two.
NATO. Yeah. He's a pretty terrible number two, by the way. Like yeah, I don't know. Anyways, we'll get into him. But basically his plan is just to hold NATO ransom. He's going to hijack some atomic bombs. And then what is it? He wants I wrote it down. 100
100
million British
million
pounds,
pounds. Yeah, which
or
I think is like
260
200.
million
Yeah.
American, or something like that. So basically his plan is to hold them ransom to get all this money for Spectre. And we get a decent little taste of Spectre and them sitting around that table. And where is it? Paris, I believe they were meeting.
Yeah, I think so.
It's funny that not the location being Paris, but for such a secretive organization, he basically walks into one building. They're like, good day, Mr. Largo, and then he just walks behind one single door.
Right.
And he's just in this super secretive meeting of these, well, really horrible people, really, right? They're out to basically destroy the world and get theirs.
Mm.
You would think it would be, oh, this elaborate, way to have to take the fireman's pole down and then the elevator. Nope, it just basically walks behind one secret door and that's it.
Pull the fourth book on the third shelf.
Yeah.
And I think.
Okay, but it's not as elaborate as it seems like it would be. But yeah, anyways, and we get short scene there, and then from there Bond kind of goes from there, and he seemingly only takes the job because he sees a picture of, is it Domino he sees the picture of?
Well, no.
He gets assigned to somewhere
you're
else, but
right, but you're jumping pretty far ahead, because that doesn't come up until about midway through the movie when he gets
okay.
assigned.
Yeah.
No, like first they have that whole spat where he takes out a like ranking member of Spectre
Right.
in the opening, and he has there's
right,
that
right.
stunt with the jetpack thing.
I
Which
think I purposely scrubbed that from memory.
well, and I mean, and this is something that I was thinking about when I was watching, and it's like, this is so oddly underwhelming.
Mhm.
But I'd have to think, nearly 60 years ago, that might have been like, wow, that's a pretty cool thing to have a jetpack
Yeah.
doing that 21-second flight or whatever.
Well, yeah, and that was a real jetpack, right? That
Yeah.
that was really done.
Yeah, the stuntman was like, I ain't doing this without a helmet.
Right.
Like, I don't care how debonair Bond.
Right. And then Connor had to put on the helmet.
Right. So
You're right. I did skip that. I that part totally slipped my mind because it's just I don't know. It's you're right.
the
It's
fight's
underwhelming.
well, the fight's
It's
horrible.
the
For
fight is
one,
horrible. Yeah,
like
it's bad.
we want to rag on the that meme-tastic cut up of Liam Neeson jumping over a fence and Taken 3, where it's like 8 different cuts. This is just as bad.
Okay, I haven't seen Taken 3, so
I don't know if it's from Taken 3 or Taken 2, but there is a point where it is a 15-second clip of Liam Neeson literally just jumping over a fence, and that it's spliced up like 6-7 times.
oh jeez.
It's
Okay.
it is filming at its finest. And well, that's the same thing
magic
that
of
happens
movies,
here.
or what was always like the phrase? I forget what the phrase is, but
magic of
anyways,
cinema, maybe. Yeah.
something of that nature.
But yeah, it's the
It
same
makes you
thing with
believe
this
a man
fight.
can fly or a man can step over a fence.
Yeah, like the fight is so choppy and just bad.
Yeah.
And then and then it gets into the bit with Largo, and then it shifts back to Bond being treated like I want to say it's after, because it's after the mission. Well, because he got hit by that poker and stuff.
Right.
He's on it's not leave or anything, but he's recuperating from taking a little bit of a beating.
Right.
And he's in that resort kind of place, which I don't remember if they specified exactly where that was. Was that like in southern England or something?
I don't recall. Must be something, because I assume he drives back to London, so
I think it's somewhere in like southern England, and that's where he runs into a Spectre member, but they don't know. Well, he doesn't know he's Spectre, and that guy doesn't know he's a 00 agent.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's when he, like, that pilot who ends up being killed, and then they use a double of him to hijack that NATO plane.
Yep.
That's when he is able to be like, hey, I need to be in the Nassau, because that dude was right. That dude was there, and then
he basically says one line, and that convinces M to be, I guess you better go.
Right. It's like, well, if he says it, then he knows.
This is the sister of him. So thanks for the info. Like,
right. There's not really much of a like, how do you know that his sister is even involved?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't really probe him just to get more information as to why he would be the right agent for the mission.
Right.
He just basically reverses and says the other guy or the other agent is no longer going. Now you're going. It's kind of silly, but I think it just speaks to the pacing of this movie. Right, they seem like they want to push things forward as quickly as possible. But it slogs in lots of parts. It's long-winded in lots of parts for no apparent reason.
Yeah, like the kind of I guess the best,
the buoyancy of the water or whatever.
the courting of Domino.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they did that as a way to make it more plausible. Mm-hmm. I use this word very loosely, plausible, that she was willing to kind of turn on Largo. Mm-hmm. And go with Bond, sings his penis didn't work the first time, which I actually liked that line.
None of his charms worked for a good chunk of their interactions until late.
Right. So, and I think that it was to kind of, because that's the thing that goes on with this movie. I do kind of like, even though it is very straightforward and what's going on with it, that there is this sort of punch counter punch going on between Secret Service and Spectre.
Mhm.
So it isn't just like Spectre is this sort of entity that you don't see anything about, but then they do something and then they're just like gone again,
Mhm.
which seems to happen a lot with these sorts of things. They're just the evil bad guy waiting at the end of the film,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Now um they make points like, oh yeah, we're not killing Bond just yet, because if we did, that would obviously set something off for them to send all their goons down,
Mhm.
which is Fiona. Fiona says that to Largo.
Yeah.
And um oh, and then just when they take out Paula, or at least capture her, kind of thing.
Mhm.
That, and also capture, like, it's a little bit more of a back and forth, and I appreciate that, where it's not just, yeah, the the only, like, Bond doesn't really get kidnapped or like captured this time around, outside of like very early on when they don't realize that he is a secret agent.
Mhm.
So there's not so much of the, oh, here's the ridiculous death trap laser
Yeah. Yeah,
table
that's
kind of.
true actually. Yeah.
So they just got the weird, spine loosener, the robotic sex machine that Bond had to endure.
Mhm.
But and outside of the pool of sharks scene, there's really not a lot in the way of, oh, here's this elaborate over the top, we have you suspended 3 stories up
Right. And you
by
need
three.
to use a gadget or whatever to escape.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the
So
sharks really is the closest to that. And the sharks, it kind of makes sense. Like you wouldn't think Largo would want to start shooting guns in there and kill his sharks and stuff. So it's sort of, and his sharks seem to be effective at, you know, just killing people. Like he's put
mm,
other people in his pool. And there's the scene earlier on where they kill that like that informant or whatever he is. Like he's just like a low rung guy. He's like, you failed me, and throws him in there.
right.
And then plus there was another guy fighting Bond in the pool, right? So he's probably thinking like, okay, if that guy doesn't kill Bond, like while he's trying to kill that guy, Bond will get eaten by the sharks.
Right.
So yeah, it's still some disbelief there, but you're right, it's not quite.
It's not
Once
like
this
it's
candle
Goldfinger with
burns
the,
this
yeah.
rope, Mr. Bond,
Right.
the anvil will fall, which will cause the tennis ball to bounce 17 times, which will cause the slinky to take,
Right. It's not, yeah, not Mousetrap.
yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, and if anything, it just, yeah, there's much less disbelief needing suspended there. And
Mhm.
it also colors Largo with a bit more of a sadistic,
Mhm.
yeah, let's, I mean, you already see it with him, like you said before, feed him to the sharks.
Right.
uh, my sharks are hungry.
Yep. Yep. Fair enough. No, that's true.
Mm.
Um, I forget the point I was going to make. I
Oh
mean, one
no.
thing that's interesting about this movie, and at the time it was an expensive movie. I think it cost them 9 million or something at the time.
I'm
Just
not 100% certain, but they spent some money.
yeah, this would have been quite costly to make. And I've always heard that it's really difficult to film anything in and around water.
Right.
Um, Case in point, the movie Waterworld. Everyone says, it's funny how bad that movie got just destroyed by critics. And if you watch it, it's not as horrible as everyone always wanted to make it out to be. But there was lots of problems. It took them months and months to film, and I guess there was a point where lots of the things got rusted because of all the sea salt and stuff.
uh
So I imagine this must have been pretty difficult to film this movie, and not just the underwater battle, which is quite extensive. Like there's quite a lot of film that's underwater in this movie. There's I don't know the amount of time exactly, but again, in the 60s, I assume this would have been probably pretty new technology to film underwater, like full color cameras, all of this. So I kind of give this movie credit for that too. I know we're jokingly comparing it to Moonraker, but this was all actually had to be done, right? This was actually stunt people
But they
diving.
didn't
This
go into
was
space.
pretty sure they didn't go to space.
Oh no.
They probably reused the set from Diamonds Are Forever with the little moonlander thing that he drives around. It's probably just reuse set pieces.
Well, I do know that when they practiced it a whole bunch on land, and
Mhm.
then they jumped in and would do it, and then how they would, because they don't have earpieces and that sort of thing, was that there's certain points where you see them doing hand signals,
Yeah.
and not just like hand signals to each other, but kind of in the fight and stuff, you can kind of catch some
Yeah.
weird movement, and that was them communicating to one another on what they were trying to do. It was using those different kind of hand signals and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's really neat. Borrowing
Yep.
from what talked about with the last movie, this is another point of which there's a creativiness to it that you can't just overcome with new technology kind of thing. And I like that's to me neato.
Yeah, for sure. And I imagine the amount of planning to do all of those scenes and even just boat riding and so forth, had to be extensive. This
Mm.
wasn't just a weekend. And generally speaking, this film there are parts in the underwater scenes where you can see that there's reused shots, like somebody is supposed to be getting stabbed with a knife or something. You can kind of see it. They're just using a different angle, but it's the exact same scene, or it's just replayed in a different way, sped up or whatever. We'll get to that point too. There's a lot of sped up camera work in this movie. But I just found that impressive to think that even though this movie is as old as it is, it still looks pretty decent. Like that,
Mm.
like it's filmed well enough that you're like, okay, yeah, there's some parts here where it's not edited well, but the amount of work that went into this is noticeable on film. And it's I don't typically like movies that are focused so much on water, but I didn't, like you, I was kind of dreading walking into this movie being like, oh, I don't remember this one being that great. I still don't think it's really great, but I have found a little bit more appreciation in parts of it,
Mm.
especially that aspect.
That's fair. I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it was just because I did laundry or something, but um, I mean, there's some wonky stuff like it where, and it could be that it's for me the problem is flipped where with like A View to a Kill, the first half of it sped along and then it just hit a truck and then died there as it crawled to the finish line.
Yeah.
This it's really choppy in the beginning and you're kind of like, all right, but then once you actually they actually get to the Bahamas, it flows by pretty quickly.
Mhm.
At least that's how it felt to me. I mean, there's the little parts where that courtship can be a little longer than you would expect, just because it's, you're introducing a Domino character, and you got Fiona, oh, you got Paula, oh, Felix is here, oh, Pinder,
Yeah.
you got all these characters that are kind of just plopped in real quick.
Right.
But it flows better than the first half, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. For me, I just think as a whole, the movie kind of drags along in a lot of parts until
Mm.
that last I don't know if it's maybe the last quarter for me where I'm like, okay, lots happens, lots moves along the pacing really quick.
Mm-hmm.
But as a whole, like, yeah, I found, as I said, a bit more appreciation and didn't know what to get into this. I really thought, oh, I'm really gonna have to focus and really try to get myself through this movie, and I didn't feel quite as bad by the end.
Mm.
So it's a good thing. I think it probably says a lot about not only me as a film viewer, but just as to be able to appreciate that the type of film this is, and just it's kind of a different Bond film. Like it is, right? It's this type of setting is familiar, but not all the water stuff. Like, yeah, okay, he's been in other tropical locations and so forth, but I can't think of another Bond movie that really puts so much emphasis on being on the water.
Right. I don't know if if it's just because it was hitting the fever pitch of the 60s and all that fun sexual stuff.
Well, thank
But
goodness there was no surfing scene or something. Isn't that kind of weird that this movie doesn't have anything? Because that, the whole 60s surf craze and all this, that all comes in the later movies.
reminiscing on what we missed out on.
Right.
Well,
Other actors had to carry the torch.
Right. Well, I mean, in the sense of just kind of there seems to be a little bit more of a pinprick for like the sensuality of things that goes on. Like there's that point where Bond is using that mink glove.
No.
Well,
Yes.
but I bring right, but I mean, and I bring this up mainly as a very strong juxtaposition between how a lot of or a lack thereof of like sensuality is in media today. A lot of times sexual encounters or just that sort of romantic vibe comes off as very aggressive. Nowadays it's a very aggressive, just kind of like, two cave people going at it kind of thing. And this movie, yeah, there is he beds Fiona and then has sex with Domino in the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like, I don't know about that one, but
yeah, didn't you say something stupid like "hope we didn't disturb the fish" or something?
Fish or something.
What the
stupid.
hell? Like, what a stupid scene.
Right, but less that and more of just like the mint glove, that sort of feeling. And then you see it again with Largo, where he's going to torture her after catching her before she
with a cigarette and ice.
Right, but I mean, in this, like, that's kind of bordering that. There's that like that. I wish I could remember his name, but the Silent Hill creator talks about that a lot, and that's why like a lot of like sexual imagery and stuff comes up in Silent Hills. That there's this very fine line between like sensual, not sensual, but like sexual and fear. And I was, to me, it was just like, oh, that's a very peculiar thing. You see it also with Bond doing the whole like using his teeth to pull out a poison spine.
Right.
So there's it almost feels like there's a lot of winks and nods to or a little more overt winks and nods to fetishes sort of stuff like that.
That's
and it was just I don't know, maybe it was just me just kind of, I don't know, maybe I was just horny when I watched it, I don't know. but like it was just something that it was just like, okay. Like
I hear you though. Like I didn't really think of that until you bringing up some of those points, because that's, I guess, as I'm viewing this movie, a lot of that stuff just kind of, I just glaze over so much of the sort of supposed romance aspects of these are not romantic in the slightest.
Right.
Like they're very one-sided sort of situations, right? With Bond being, I don't know if he's really the aggressor or whatever, but he's having his free will over these women usually in these scenes. So I'm just like, I just usually ignore most of them. But as you're bringing this up, I say, okay, I can see that maybe this was viewed as being a bit risque, right? In the time that it came out, and they were pushing the boundary a little bit when it comes to that. I will say there is a callback in this movie, to this movie, from and it's my favorite thing that just as I was watching this, I totally forgot about this. But in Casino Royale, the one with Daniel Craig, the scene where Bond and Fiona pull up to the hotel, and I forget what they say exactly in this movie, but it says something like, "Thank goodness it was a short ride" or something, right when they get there.
Oh, he there's that back and forth that Fiona has with Bond in this film that I really like,
Yeah,
and she's like, "Oh, you don't
I
like
don't like to go for a ride or whatever.
I don't like to be what's what
Men
is it?
don't like to be taken for a ride, I think he says, or something.
He responds to that, and she says something that you don't like to go for. Oh shoot, I
You
wish I
don't like
remembered.
driven women or something like that,
Oh
or
yeah, they don't
something
like
to
to be
that effect.
driven. Yeah, yeah, men don't like to be driven. It's like no, men don't like to be taken for a ride.
Right. But just the callback in Casino Royale is not, there's another line there that's links closer to the Casino Royale line. But remember when Bond is basically seducing that what's the name of the assassin guy that he's got to go after, and he links up with his wife or whatever first.
Oh, what is her name?
I can't remember what either of those characters name. I have to rewatch the movie. But anyway, so he gets her to go in his car, and then remember he just
It
loops
just
around.
drives right.
And I think this was supposed to be a callback because that was in the Sao as well. So I do think that was meant to be a nudge and wink to Thunderball.
I mean,
Just
maybe.
yeah, I just feel like it is. It's the same car basically. I mean, I guess the car she drives is not, but he drives the DB8, and I feel like there's a connection there. I could be wrong, but you can always find these nuggets and assume they're connected somehow to other
I was
films.
gonna say, I was wondering maybe if it's not, not necessarily meant to be a wink and a nod, and just merely rhymes with it, kind of thing.
It could totally be, but just based on being in the same location, and there's sort of the back and forth Bond has with her kind of just reflected that to me. And I thought, oh, I don't know if that's intentional, but it's like, yeah, it's kind of cool if it is intentional.
Mm.
But we did kind of allude a bit to and we've skipped over it. I've kind of pushed us all over as well. What do you feel about the credits scene at the beginning of this, and the song choice and so forth?
It's not bad, but not impressive.
Mm-hmm.
As for the visual, I was like whatever.
Okay. I feel like that's a pretty iconic visual. I feel like other Bond movies try to mimic that in some way.
Yeah, I guess it's just I don't know. For me at this point in my life, I'm just kind of like, it might be that it is so Bond-esque that it's just kind of like, okay, cool.
I really feel like other Bond movies try to simulate that.
No, for sure.
Of,
but
right?
I think
like,
in the sense of visually, it's just there. It's not. There's nobody doing flips and skis in silhouettes.
there's some pretty bad ones that come after this, but this really sets a template of like, women's bodies being portrayed a certain way,
right,
being in the dark with that, right, that sort of thing.
And I could possibly
I can't remember
lead a little bit more credence to my comment of how they sort of a little bit more fetishist sort of things coming out, a little bit more
yeah, it could
what they
well
perceive
be
as sensual.
Yeah. Or everyone was really just drunk on set all the time, as you were also they just really, let's just get crazy here. But it really, a lot of derivatives come from this specific one, because I Goldfinger's is pretty straightforward, right? Where it's like Goldfinger's face on the gold body and stuff. You're like, okay, yeah, you definitely see that. And you do see that kind of imagery as well in later ones. I think Die Another Day, I think, actually has, like, remember, like, Bond's reflected in ice cubes and stuff. Like there's kind of callbacks to that. But this one just seems so iconic in the sense that a lot of these, I don't think the main film directors direct those. I think they always like bring in somebody else to usually direct those, whatever 2 or 3 minute intros. And there just seems to be lots of homage back to kind of that, how Thunderball looked. And keeping that, this is the expectation that we're going to have this kind of similar flow to what this intro should be like. But I agree. I don't
No,
really feel this is
yeah.
Tom Jones's better work, but I think he's quite young as well when he recorded this. I feel like he was in his 20s or something.
Maybe I'm not certain
So
of his age.
it's all right. I mean, until he hits that high Thunderball note at the end, it doesn't really do anything for him until that very last note that he really belts it out.
Right. It's like all saved for that point.
I think so.
It's just like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Eh.
But a lot of these lines I think are again like used in this specific song is used as a template, right? The horns in the song, all of that, the flow of the song.
Speaking of you mentioned this music, the harpsichord stripped down Bond theme that plays sometimes throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's awful. I have to get that out there. Like there's something about it that just that rubs me the wrong way. I'm like, okay. Every time it popped up, I'm like, something's off, and I don't know what. I don't know if it's missing something, but the stripped down effect here doesn't work so well.
I didn't find the music in this movie to be very memorable or striking. This coming off of A View to a Kill, which again I know has got a lot of 80s sort of synth and stuff in it, right. But at least there's some edge to it that's kind of defines it a little bit more. This movie just seems to try to borrow a lot from the previous, particularly the previous two movies, feels. And yeah, there's obviously the theme song.
Well, yeah, you especially see that with like how the Spectre meeting room, like you could tell that they were like, oh, Goldfinger, we already got this
right
sort of figured out kind of thing. I do like how they have that, and then midway through you get the Secret Services variant. We'll say I do like that goes on, and you can kind of be like, oh, okay, yeah.
But it's just it doesn't really give me much to work with. But back to the Tom Jones thing, the end of that, remember The Simpsons with the McBain, where if you watch all of the clips and they're all actually like one movie? Have you seen that?
No, I've not seen.
So, have you seen any of the McBain clips though? Like from the
well, I remember it
episodes.
Yeah.
And he's like Mendoza, and he's like
shoots himself out of like he's like in sculpted ice, and he breaks out.
Yeah, he breaks out, and then he throws him out the window, and he explodes and stuff. But but have you ever listened to the theme song that plays like when the credits roll?
No.
It is totally Thunderball. And it's supposed to be like totally mimicking the lyrics of Thunder, because isn't the lyric something in this like he takes whatever he wants and something like that? Well, you have to listen to the McBain theme. It's just exactly the same as like the rules mean nothing to McBain. He like, it's just, I can't remember it because I haven't listened to it in a while, but it's pretty funny how much they try to mimic the Thunderball theme. Again, this movie, lots of like, it's something about this movie does seem to sit with people. There's aspects of this movie that get parodied a lot for some reason.
It's the mink glove. It's obviously the mink glove.
I'm going to send you the McBain thing after, because it makes me, and that's when Grandpa Simpson and Jasper are sitting in the theater and they're like, boo, and they start throwing their drinks at the screen. They complain about, how they don't make movies like they used to, or whatever he said. But yeah, I don't know where to take it from here. I guess we could maybe look at some characters or specific scenes, or
well, one thing I do want to bring up, and you see it's done a couple times fairly early on, and I wonder if it was just some sort of weird improvisation by Connery, but the opening scene where he decides to like double take back and then throw the flowers, and then he does it again with the grape.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he does do that. He picks that one grape for no reason.
One grape, and I don't know if that was just Connery just sort of having fun with the bit or something, or what. That's
a good question. I don't. Yeah, because that's right. He kills the Spectre agent. What number is that Spectre agent?
6, I think.
6? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then he walks back.
Not like it
even
matters because
though,
they kill like 9 and 2 and then 8 die. It's like the 4
yeah,
of them get
well,
conked.
two die, or yeah, whatever the lady in
Largo's.
Largo's 2, but who's
Oh
the
yeah,
lady in uh the old lady in From Russia with Love? She was also a numbered agent. She was like 3 or 4 or something.
oh, I
I haven't
don't
seen
remember.
a lot, but she is a numbered agent as well. Anyways, enough Spectre agents get killed off, specifically in this movie, and kind of just unceremoniously, really. Like they're just kind of, oh, they're replaceable. Like we can find some other agents or whatever. But that, I'm thinking about your double take thing. I'm trying to think if there's any other scenes where he does something like that. Doesn't he do something at the recuperation center? Something where he like,
Well, that's the grape, I think.
well, that's when he goes to check the room.
Right,
But
and
doesn't
that's
he
where
do
the
something
grapes
with
are.
towel or something as well? I forget now. I feel like he does something with the towel though, where like he does like a double take, where he's like walking with the towel and then he like stops and like,
Oh, it's because he sees the guy in that machine, and then he goes
in
back
the
to grab a
shower.
broom and the
Oh
like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
sauna
That,
machine. I think
let me
maybe
out. Yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah. But I'm thinking he also does technically a double take in the shower though, right? Where Felix comes to the door, he's about
Oh,
to look in there.
that's in the Bahamas.
Yeah, yeah, but he's
Yeah.
still, it's almost like a double take there where he kind of goes in, but then he goes back and then he comes back a second time. But it's not
Yeah, you
necessarily,
think
I
the
guess,
guy
like
would
a
have? Yeah, it's not. Yeah, this is
not,
more of like a goofy kind of.
yeah. Well, maybe he was drunk, like you said, he was drunk like everybody else. So maybe
Maybe
just
I don't know.
maybe you're right. Maybe he just wanted to add some sort of slyness to the character by, he knows he's in danger, but he takes this extra effort to do something, add a comedic bit. I don't know.
Yeah, not certain. I don't. Yeah, this is just kind of a something I noticed. I just
Hmm.
like this is a little. It's silly.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
a
it
little
doesn't
bit
get
of
as silly
silliness.
as the Roger Moore error, though, right? Like it's silly, but certainly not to an extreme degree.
Right.
Kind of just more unnecessary.
Mm.
Doesn't make sense why he would have to go back and pour the flowers on the guy again. Maybe this constituted as a level of humor that we're just not catching because at
Mm.
the time it was, oh, that's so silly. Why would you do that? And makes people laugh. But now we're just more, why? Why?
Right. I guess
Hey,
the other silliness, and maybe you can answer this better than me. When Bond gets sort of busted and
mhm.
taking the pictures underneath Largo's yacht.
Okay.
He has his goons throw hand grenades
Yeah.
into the water. Would that do anything?
I don't know the physics of it.
As somebody who's not a physicist or has the brain
I mean,
power to
well,
do it.
in theory, like a grenade does shoot out shrapnel, right?
That's nice. Bullet, using a gun doesn't really do much when shot into the water.
No, I mean it's still. I mean, if you're close enough to the
I
surface
just
where
don't
it
know that. I
hits,
just don't know
it
the
would do
science,
something.
the scientific difference between that and a depth charge to
Mhm.
be like, maybe there is a reason why.
Well, I would assume that he probably didn't have depth charges, though, right? It's
Well,
just on his
I
yacht.
get that, but I
So
mean,
maybe they were thinking, if nothing else, like it would disrupt the water. It would like maybe disorientate him under the water, that he might come out of the water.
maybe
Maybe
I don't
was
know.
like the idea. I don't know. Like it doesn't seem super unreasonable. It's, there probably is some physics that would tell you, yeah, it's kind of silly, but I don't know. I guess I can edge on the side of, okay, I could see that maybe being somewhat plausible as a, especially in like the 60s, right? Of like, okay, sure, this, at this point I'll take this. This isn't as psycho as hanging him upside down while a candle burns the rope or
Well,
whatever.
right. No, it's just. I mean, I get trying to weed out the intruder, but it just. I guess to me, it was just like, did
Did
that
you
even really work?
did you want him to just be like, screw it, release the nuclear nuclear
Release
bomb?
the freaking sharks with nuclear lasers.
Well, just lets the nuclear bombs drop. It's like, God, whatever. Just take the guy out. set him off.
Just
We've got two. We can use one.
why were there not more harpoons?
Oh, because they were saving them for the final battle.
Evidently.
Well, we should definitely touch upon that final battle because it's a pretty big deal, and obviously a lot of time and effort went into that.
Well, I mean, yeah, that thing's like what, 20 some odd minutes long?
It's
Like.
long. It's long. And that's why, as I said, I think there's a lot of cuts where I would be watching, and then a minute later, I just could recognize that it was the exact same two actors doing the exact same movement, but maybe it was from a different angle, or they just were, flipped the film so it looked like they were on opposite sides or whatever. But it was exactly the same motions, same weapons in the hands and stuff like that. I do like the one spear that goes through like the forearm.
Oh yeah.
Like there's definitely a few where you're like, ooh, that is pretty brutal.
That's what I say. Yeah, there's much more of a brutality to this because it's, with gunshots and stuff, the stuff goes so quickly, and then you just see what sort of like wounds are from it.
Yeah.
For this, it's like, oh, you can see the harpoon being fired and then see it sticking out. You're like, oh, and then when there are no harpoons, it's to the knives.
Yeah, wasn't there somebody who had like a knife in the chest at least?
Yeah, I think so. I think,
and they're like flailing in the water, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a few of those. I mean, I do like the huge breathing tubes on the my brain shut down.
Breathing tubes on the.
Well, just to their
like the air
oxygen
tanks.
Yeah, like just how big those breathing tubes were, right? Like they were huge.
Nowadays like little vacuum tubes.
Now they're way smaller, right? Like they're just the functionality of the new equipment is totally different. But then it was just like the double tubes on both sides. If you lost one of those, your air is just flying out of it. And but it's kind of fun to watch them, constantly go for each other's faces, right? Like with the knife and try to cut off the tubes and go for the mask and stuff like that.
I also liked is that it got to a point where they were filming stuff that they just kind of were like, we can't keep repeating things, and so they would show like a random lobster just sort of walking, going, what is going on?
Yeah,
and it was on there for a while, for like, it was there for, I want to say about 6 to 10 seconds. You just see this lobster just sort of
this huge lobster,
confused, like
that's just social moments, show some motion life. That is true. They just randomly show some stuff. And there's also the scene too where they screw up, where Bond puts on a black mask. He's wearing a blue mask. He gets his blue mask gets taken off by Largo. So he grabs, there's a dead guy, takes his black mask, and then when Bond sees them swimming away again with the whatever that sort of engine powered device that they're driving that holds the nukes, and then he suddenly got the blue mask again. Like he just mysteriously got a blue mask on again. So
there's underwater colors playing with your mind.
Few screw ups with some of the editing and stuff like that. But as I said, as a whole, it's a pretty interesting idea. It's pretty neat. And if I watch a side by side comparison, I wouldn't be shocked if it looked almost exactly the same as Moonraker. It's just that with just that one having lasers and bodies floating out in space versus sinking to the bottom of the ocean or whatever. I wonder if we could put the lasers in to Thunderball and then take the spear guns.
I think somebody's done that, and somebody's had to.
Well, did they put the spear guns into Moonraker though?
That one I can't be sure. I would imagine somebody's done the laser one.
It'd be pretty funny, but yeah, as a whole, I aside from a few of the screw ups, I find that still kind of a really interesting concept to have this underwater battle.
That, and evidently Bond is half fish, and that he is the MVP, like taking out 30
A whole
people, it
bunch.
feels
Yeah.
like. It's just
Well,
like,
let's not forget the I don't know if they're clone troopers from Star Wars. How many CIA agents are just constantly coming into this battle just to be fodder? like a whole bunch of them when they first start the battle and they kind of go face to face, right? It's almost like a football scrimmage. And then a whole bunch of them get killed off, and then suddenly Bond's like, chase him down, and there's like a whole bunch more of these CIA agents. And like,
I
look how
mean,
many
to be
bodies
fair,
are here.
they are closer to the CIA spawn camp than Spectre spawn camp, so there's going to be a lot more of them than.
Well, I don't know who hit the Zerg rush, but like they the spawning was a little over the edge. It was just ridiculous how many of them were just popping out of nowhere to fight off the seemingly limited Spectre agents.
Mm.
But yeah, and then the conclusion is pretty unsatisfying. Like frankly, like
What an
it's
awful fight.
yeah, like it's not good.
It's not good, and it's just like they keep on jumping back onto the um oh the wheel
Yeah.
to direct it to avoid the same three rocky islands that they keep seemingly encircling around there.
Yeah. Watch for the archipelago. Like they just watch.
Like,
yeah.
it's just a
dumb.
very like, and I get being sloppy because it's on the yacht and nobody's controlling it. It's going super fast. Sure, I guess, but yeah. And then you have the one henchman turn good, who's like, hey, I don't really. These guys are too weird for me. Like,
There's a
the
lot of
nuke,
fetish going on here.
yeah, I was gonna say the nukes, the NATO and stuff. I'm totally cool with that, but this Spanish stuff, yeah, I don't really like them roped up. Like, it's a bridge too far, kind of thing. And then he's like, they're like, I don't know how to swim. Well, today's a good day to learn. As you jump off this thing, going,
He just kind of
10, 15 knots,
shoves him from his face off the boat.
right? And you don't ever see him again. So canon ending, he just drowns. That's what I thought, because they get Metal Gear Fultoned out of out of the sea.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe after the spectacular boat explosion, which again was probably pretty spectacular at the time, right? Like,
they got like super duper like primo stuff from the military for that explosion, and it was probably the biggest explosion recorded
at the time.
At the time,
yeah,
yeah, like it blew up the yacht to where they could see it up in the air. And this tiny, like, oh, that's coming back down.
Well, that's probably how that guy probably got impaled by something. He's floating on his little ring there, and then some massive chunk of metal probably cut him in half or something. And then he was eaten by sharks or something.
Yes,
Largo sharks who were free into the sea or the ocean.
The golden grotto.
Let's hope that Largo got eventually eaten by his sharks at some point. Whatever was left of his carcass after blowing up. So
right.
And we get all that stifled dialogue too, where Dom is like, I'm glad I killed him. It's like,
you're glad.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I feel
well,
really
yeah, a lot of those, like the one back and forth with Fiona was nice. The one we mentioned earlier, like some men don't like to be driven.
Yeah,
that one's a good one. He had that other one where he harpooned the guy, and he's like, I think he got the point.
Yeah, he got the point. That's probably one of my favorite, just bar none, kills in any of the Bond movies. It's a bit creative. It's just, it has a whole like swagger of coolness about Bond when he's kind of just, because we don't get James Bond in sunglasses a lot. Like when I think about it, like there's some sequences where he wears sunglasses and stuff, but not a lot, considering, because sunglasses for the longest time were, that's a cool thing to wear, but Bond doesn't really wear them often. So I don't know. I just think it looks kind of cool. And he's not just wearing like a suit, like it's in a very different vibe to it rather than a lot of the other Bond kills. So I like it. And the line is cheesy, but not like totally overboard, like cheesy, like it's cheesy enough without being too ridiculous. So
and it does it gets, I would say it gets set up when he does that firing on the clay disc
Mm,
it's a very similar kind of thing where he just sort of,
nonchalant.
Largo's like pull, and he's just kind of just, yeah, it's very nonchalant.
Yeah.
Just
Doesn't he have a
fluid motion.
sassy response too? He says something like, "Oh, it
But-
is quite easy," or it's as
well,
easy as it looks, or something.
It's something. It's easier than it looks, or something.
Yeah. Largo's
then, well,
not too
'cause-
impressed with Bond in
well,
pretty
yeah,
much the
'cause-
entire movie.
Well, yeah, well, yeah. He like Bond just comes in and just pisses all over, like anything Largo does.
Pretty much, and plays cards, beats him at skeet shooting. You know, I don't know what else does he beat him at. Steals his woman,
Right.
all kinds of stuff. So, but yeah, it's I don't know where to take this. If there's still anything else we can hit upon, but I mean, we didn't really hit a lot of the characters, as you said. I think so many of the characters are just kind of there, like outside of Bond and Largo, and then yeah, Fiona has her points, and Domino obviously too. A lot of the others don't really stand out. Like M shows up with some, actually quite a few gadgets in this movie, but sorry, I said M. Q. Sorry,
Yeah, I
I
was
said
gonna
M.
say.
Sorry, I don't know. I said M.
Like M. Yeah, and they're so brushed through real quick. I mean, Bond does use
He does, yeah.
but they're
Especially the breathing apparatus.
right. It's like, oh, it's a small breathing apparatus.
Mhm.
One's for detecting. It's a Geiger counter for detecting radiation.
Mhm.
And then there's the one
camera.
that he uses. Well, there's the camera, and then the
watch.
which is the Geiger counter one. When the one he keeps on fiddling with, the turbojet underwater kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you have that. You have, Felix pops in a little bit here and there, but it's really subdued.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does become a focus point for just Bond, Largo to a degree, and then Fiona and Domino.
You know what I was just thinking too? They're probably one of the things that was probably pretty shocking to audiences potentially was you were talking about the switch, right, between the guy who ends up taking the place of the pilot, Domino's brother. When he's discovered, like later on, because they leave him there, right? I'm just like, okay, first that is a pretty brutal kill by Largo. Largo just kind of gives him like the see you later wave and just leaves him. And then
he shouldn't have tried to extort Spectre.
No, he shouldn't have, because what did he was paid 100,000. He wanted 250.
Yeah.
And it's like you knew right away, like as a viewer, you're like, oh, that's just dumb. Like, see, you're gonna get killed. But the discovery by Bond later and how realistic, I don't think that somebody's in, like, I'm assuming that's a dummy, but it looks pretty well done. Like, when you see like a dummy falling and stuff, like, yeah, it looked still kind of human-esque. Like, it didn't look completely like just a dummy doll. I was like, oh, that might have been really shocking to audiences at that time.
That, or somehow the underwater makeup stayed on point.
Stayed really well.
All right.
And that actor would have held his breath a really long
time.
Yeah.
Yep. That too.
Because it's a pretty long shot, right? He's in there, so it's like, that's. But I could see that being pretty like shocking, right? To see not only somebody dead, but just in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess after seeing it, that harpoons stuff, that one more so than anything just sticks out. Just because there is a brutality to that.
Yep.
Donk.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
So probably the other. I guess the last thing I would point out about this is how very abrupt that ending is.
Yeah.
That ending is abrupt. Like, they get onto the safety raft for a moment and then they get Fultoned out of there. And it's the end.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. I just think it's a really bad ending. It just doesn't really wrap things up. And for Largo to be a number two, and he has like several moments in the movie for sure to really emphasize it, but it's just such a quick, abrupt ending for him. And then it's just on to the next adventure, basically.
But there's no James Bond movie back.
No, there isn't. It's yeah. Well, thank goodness he didn't have meet the same fate as Roger Moore and end up on the Golden Gate Bridge. That was maybe they got inspired by Thunderball to do that scene because he's hanging off a plane, right? It's just, we'll substitute the plane for a blimp. Like
I don't think I'm gonna go with no. There was no. I'm putting my foot down. That's not a connection.
No, I'm pretty sure that's a connection. But you're right. It's just like, yep, we're done. We're done here.
Right. Thanks for watching, kids. Have a good one. The end.
Yeah. No real no Bond quip at the end. Like usually there's some bad quip or something. No, just straight on to the next.
Yeah, outside of that, you're glad. That's really,
and nothing after.
That's all the kind of quip you get out of it. You don't get, I don't know, something.
I don't know. I wonder if there was like an additional scene that they ended up cutting to.
Looks like his plans were shipwrecked. Something
stupid like that. Right. Should have kept his eye on the sea or something like that.
Oh, something. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so they could have had some silly afterthought, or what happened to whatever the guy that they pushed off the boat, like
oh, right,
something to that effect. But I wonder if that was by choice or if that was an editing decision, like not done by the director, or.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
But it's very unsatisfying, right? It does not feel like an actual ending.
Well, that or it feels like an appropriate ending to not have anything tacked on, to be like, hey, don't expect anything else.
Maybe, yeah. There wasn't a post-credit scene after.
Right. It's just like, oh, here you go. Yep, don't even ask for any more. This is it.
Maybe. I don't know. I'd like to know what the mindset was behind that, to just basically abruptly end it. And I don't know. I don't know. So
how about yourself? Is there anything else that you would like to add?
I think the only other thing is just the shark thing too. Is I really wish Connery didn't put his hand right on the plexiglass.
It is so painfully obvious.
Like on one hand, if you're looking at it, you think, okay, it sort of looks like he's putting his hands up to let the shark go by, kind of.
Yeah.
But at the same point, you can kind of see just the way his hand's sitting, that's so unnatural to sit that way in the water, because his hand doesn't flinch at all, right? Like if you're in the water, there'd be buoyancy, right? Your body, your hand would be moving at least a bit. It doesn't really move at all. So, I mean, good on him to get in the pool with the shark. Yeah, I know there was still plexiglass, so it's like,
there wasn't that first. I think it was the first bit with him in the water with the shark.
The first one that went by.
Yeah, I think that there was intended to be plexiglass for that, but there was a gap, and it just swam right through the gap.
Oh, geez.
So it scared him. Yeah. Yeah. So
wow,
at least one of those reactions is legit. Oh, like, okay.
That's a real shark coming. Did they do something to like encourage the sharks to come after them or something? Like, did they?
No, they not that I'm aware of.
They're just an aggressive shark.
From what was mentioned in like the documentary, they had experimented with like lemon and bull sharks, which would turn right around and be like, hey, no, I didn't like that. And they're like, okay, we can't use these guys. These guys are a little too aggressive. Because bull sharks in particular, they like out in the ocean, what they'll do is they'll like circle around you. And then as they're circling around you, they'll get closer and closer and closer and closer and closer until they decide to chomp at you. Tiger sharks, they were a lot more willing to be, handled. And then when you let them go, they would just kind of go straight and not like turn right around and be like, all right, asshole.
Hmm.
So
Tiger sharks will eat like anything, from what I understand.
well, that's why you give them chum.
Yeah.
chum,
I've heard
and stay off.
I've heard stories that they've cut them open, like they'll find them dead and they'll cut them open and they found paint buckets in their stomachs. They find like like they will eat anything.
Tiger sharks, the
yeah,
raccoon of the ocean.
I guess they found like, car tire bits in them and stuff. They find all kinds of weird stuff. They just, whatever looks like it's moving they'll just go after anything. So that's really weird. So so that part. And then we didn't really touch upon it, but I don't know if this is the time to do so, but all the sort of legal disputes with this movie, right, where the rights got kind of split up between two sort of parties. And I don't want to get into too much of it because I'm sure we could analyze that for a long period, but basically it's interesting that the rights to this movie didn't just sit with the MGM studio.
Yeah, the way it sort of felt to me hearing about it and stuff was that it seemed like somebody who was a little too gung-ho to jump upon that's a good idea to get ahead of stuff. And I don't know. It really feels like somebody who has this amazing idea for something, but just doesn't have the talent, the resources, or anything of the sort to get it off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have that enough magnetic energy nor kinetic energy to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it kind of felt like to me. It's like, oh, these things are really cool. Let's pin this. And then Ian Fleming's like, this is boring as shit, guys. I'm going home. And they're like, well, okay, fine. This is our toy now.
Right.
That is the boiled down Taylor version
of why Never Say Never Again gets made. I'm just gonna play in my sandbox over here, and I'm gonna get Connery at some point. I wish they would have got like a super old Connery. It just I wonder, like, he wasn't contractually obligated to do this or anything, right? I think they just put a huge ton of money in front of it.
I think that's how the story goes, at least.
Yeah. Like, imagine if Connery was, I don't know, in his 70s, early 80s or something, and they still tried to push this through with having him. Like, that would be very interesting.
Oh, what was the one? Do you remember the one like meme idea that they tried to push when Craig became?
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that, where he would have met Connery and Connery would have said that he was the first 007 and stuff. And that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was.
Despise it. I thought it would be kind of interesting to see.
I wish I could remember what they called that, the title of that, though.
Oh, I can't remember.
It's a cool idea. Like,
yeah, I can't remember.
It's like
I think Roger Moore had passed already at that point, right? So they couldn't put something like a scene with him in,
right?
But yeah, what was that called?
It's like you only die once or something.
Something like that.
Something akin
like a
to
play
that.
on some others.
Well, I think it was kind of a wink and a nod to Yolt.
Mm-hmm. Knowing what you know now, if Never Say Never Again came out in, I think, what's the year that Die Another Day came out? 2002? 2001?
I think 2.
Something like that.
Yeah.
What if these two movies came out at the same time and went head to head?
This Thunderball and
so no, Never Say Never Again.
Oh.
Filmed in 2000 with Connery and Die Another Day. Which and you're being forced to see one of these films because you're being paid to write a review or something.
Oh,
which
boy.
of the two movies would you go
boy
to?
Oh boy.
I mean, in theory, your mind would say, okay, I've seen the 3 previous Brosnan films. This is probably, in the same vein. Like in theory, my brain would go there to say, okay,
yeah, League of
Yeah.
Extraordinary Gentlemen has not come out yet.
No,
So
because that came out in 2003, I think it was.
so the complete stinker that was that that like effectively made Connor go, yeah,
Connery
I'm
retired
done.
from it. I don't hate that movie. There's a lot of really, really, really bad things in that movie. But there's a couple of things. It was like it's very Hollywoodized, like the action sequences, but I'm like that some of the action sequences are still kind of fun to go through. And the ideas from the comic are there to say, like, you know, it's kind of interesting to take those literary characters and put them in these environments, but it's such a mess, right? I think even the director, I don't think he stopped directing movies, but like I think he took a pretty extensive break after, like, everyone involved in that project was pretty much like either blacklisted or really jaded from
It's like what was that, the horrific one, the Island of Dr. Monroe.
Island Dr. Moreau, which had what's his name, Val Kilmer, and
Yep,
it's the last movie he's in.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name. Godfather guy. Um,
Marlon Brando.
there you go. Yep.
Yeah, Mr. I could have been a contender. Was that from On the Waterfront? I could have been a contender.
Could have been somebody.
Yeah, it could have been somebody. Yeah, no, maybe there's always these projects that come along, right? That just these kind of things happen. But I don't know. A part of me would be probably at least uniquely curious to find out what a 7-year-old Sean Connery would bring to the role of James Bond.
Yeah, that would be that would pique my interest in a morbid sense, to be like, what?
For the first time in whatever, I guess at that point it would have been what, 30 years, because I think he was, what's Diamonds Are Forever, 74, no, 71,
I think 70.
something like that. I don't know, early 70s. No, I think 73 is Live and Let Die, so it must be like 71. But yeah, I don't know, that would be a tough coin flip. What if the movies crossed over somehow, like how all these like new movies are coming out and parallel universes and all this stuff.
Yeah, oh boy.
You get to see Sean Connery doing the surfboarding, parasailing, or whatever that.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
The funny thing is I can't even think of a scene to put Brosnan in and Never Say Never Again, because there's nothing memorable about it. It's just so not memorable. And I almost wish Never Say Never Again was almost a different book. Like, I'm wondering, okay, what if it was a remake of Goldfinger? Or what if it was a remake of something other than Thunderball? Like, would they have actually been able to do something with this material? Because I don't remember Never Say Never Again putting any underwater battles. There's like the weird octopus shaped layer that comes out of the water and stuff, right? Like it's doesn't quite feel like Thunderball in a lot of ways. So I was like, oh,
yeah,
look like if it was You Only Live Twice, for example. Like what would that movie look like? What would it be?
I'm not that creative to be like, yeah, let me piece it together differently there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would literally just be like, oh, turn it into, I don't know, mining precious metals. There you go. That's your environment. Have fun, kids.
Yeah.
I am not that type of creative.
If nothing else, great title though. Like, great callback, right? To whoever came up with the title was very clever, very creative with that, and a great hook to try to get people to watch it.
All right.
And then they watched it and they told other people not to watch it. Anyways, that's my last point.
way off kilter.
Sorry.
You're good. Oh goodness. Well, I guess with that, I guess we'll give this some sort of ranking, less ranking and more of a score.
What status does it get?
I'll jump out ahead of you here on this one.
Sure.
And I would probably put this, it's not abysmal.
Mhm.
My heart says 2.5, but my mouth's going to say a 3.
Okay.
Like, it's not abysmal. It's not offensive. It's just kind of, it's there.
Hmm.
And it just doesn't, I made that joke about it being like aquatic Moonraker.
Yeah.
And that's just because Moonraker's so batshit that
Yeah.
it like overdoes it and is just super ridiculous. And I'm there for it. I may not be popping ecstasy like the rest of these people, but I'm there for it. Whereas this, it's just kind of like, okay, all right, okay.
This was taken, I think, serious enough. I don't know how it was on set and everything, but from a script handling and so forth, they obviously wanted to continue the vibe of the previous movies, but added something to it, add a really new locale, a really new sort of filming aspect with all the underwater. So yeah, I could see that almost being boring in a way, in the sense that, like you said, Moonraker just puts all the chips on the table on the off the deep end, right? They just we're gonna have Jaws fall in love. We're gonna have all this like just a whole bunch of fantastical nonsense happen. But this movie doesn't really go to that, right? Like it still tries to keep some level of being grounded. It's not it's yeah, it doesn't really try to be as goofy as possible. It tries to be as serious as possible.
Mhm.
I think for me, I I don't want to give the same score as you, but I feel the same. I can almost be
Yeah, I
probably,
feel this is why I jumped ahead of you because I felt we
yeah.
were gonna.
We often end up at the same scores or very close, at least. I don't think we've had one where we've been really way off.
Not yet.
Not even by 2 points, I think. I think
Right.
1 point is at the most for separation. I'd be willing to bump this at the 3.5. And I think it's just, again, looking at this from a film making perspective and stuff, which I'm not a filmmaker, but just being impressed with some of that aspect. I guess I'll give it that little bit of a nudge up. But unfortunately, as much of a I don't know, point of reference, for lack of a better term, for other Bond movies and those spoof movies and so forth, I think it deserves a bit of that credit for that. And
Mhm.
Connery plays the role. He still seems engaged in at this point. He doesn't seem disenfranchised yet. He seems to be wanting to be in the movie.
Mhm.
And although there's some of the aspects that drag on, it's still worth watching, especially if you like Connery in the role.
Okay.
Except for we didn't bring it up. That nurse scene, I know I can't. I really wish that was all cut from the movie.
That's a hard break, but I understand. Yeah.
Oh, it's too. It's yeah.
What, you
It's
don't like to extort sex out of people? Is that
no, because
no
you could borderline call that,
borderline?
yeah, like it's bad. It's just not even. It's so, and in today's climate, that would not be ever put on film, right? That would be, unless it's like a very specific type character for a
Mm.
specific movie, showcasing something. But for this type of film and this character, I would be completely inappropriate in today's world and today's sort of media. So it's and even I think as I was younger, I was just like, like that's not even, like, she's trying to push him away and stuff, and he just keeps advancing. It's not, it's, for me, it's a bit tough to sit through.
Mm.
And it doesn't push anything forward, right, narrative wise or anything. It could be completely removed from the film and you wouldn't even, other than the I guess the death trap of being attached to the back stretcher, like it could have just, from there you probably could have cut out a good 10 minutes basically,
Mm.
and just been on to the next thing. But yeah, so be it. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I'll still stick with the 3.5.
Okay, I got you. Like, no, I get it. That's, yeah, that's, I think it's something you just have to grapple with. Um, I mean, you're looking at a film that's, like I said, nearly 60 years old.
Yep.
Not that far removed, but it wasn't like you were there on set
No.
going, yeah, that's a good, yeah, yeah. Good
Somebody
move.
was though, right? Somebody,
Well,
oh,
right,
this
right.
this really shows his manliness and whatever. But yeah, anyways, yeah, well, we can move on. So I think it's my turn to pick.
It is your turn to pick
the next film.
Correct.
And it didn't take me long to come
Oh
upon
no.
the film I wanted. No, and I don't think this is necessarily considered a bad film in the series. In fact, it's actually probably one of the more liked films.
Oh.
And it is a Craig movie.
Oh.
And I'd like to go to Skyfall.
Oh.
And
I did not expect you to go this route. Okay.
Well, the reason being, well, one, I didn't think you would expect it, was definitely part of the reason in my choice. And the second was to just really move away, almost as far away from the time period wise of where we've been. You know, we're in the 80s, then to the 60s, and now to really kind of go way onto the other side. And then the third thing is just selfishly, I need to see this movie again because I've only seen it once in the theater when it had come out, and I was not impressed. So I think I need to see it again to really kind of step away from when I'd first seen it and see if I still enjoy it.
I'm trying to think,
or what I might like about it.
I know I've only seen it once. I just don't remember if I saw it in theaters or not.
I believe you did because I think we connected shortly after. I think I saw it first, and then I think you saw it a little while after, a couple of weeks after.
What year did that come out?
2012, I think.
Okay, this is why it's
like
fuzzy.
November of 2012 or something like that.
Because I would have seen it on just kind of by myself, just kind of gone and just hopped in theater. Because didn't it come out like around the same time as that newer version of Les Mis?
I don't know. I'm not too sure.
Either that or came like that or the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. I want to say it came around one of those two, maybe even the Dragon Ball movie. I think actually that was a couple years later, or at least a year.
War of the Gods or whatever that was.
Something like that.
I think that one came out. That was either 13 or 14, or something like that.
Something like that. But there's some, I want to say that I saw it and then I saw something else either right before or right after, not like the week, but something that vastly overshadows.
Overshadowed Skyfall?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I mean, it's not a great film, but I do like the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, and I don't hate the Les Mis movie, though they're not the best singers, but they're actors.
Right.
So I'm not gonna hold them to the same level as the Broadway.
No, they're not. Yeah. They're not really Broadway.
Outside of the guy who played the priest, because he was Jean Valjean and
Jackman.
No, the priest.
I haven't seen it. Like I don't know the story very
so
well.
The priest in the movie is he played Jean Valjean in want to say the 10th anniversary. I think. Okay. Or no, it might have been the 25th anniversary.
Well, Hugh Jackman was on Broadway for a while too. Like I think he does have some singing chops, kind of thing. I don't know if he's great, but
yeah, I just don't think it. My brain just doesn't go. Oh yeah, singing chops. It's more of this is Wolverine. See how? No, not that. I'm just going to see how this is, just like from a sense of how they act. Things they're able to do more physical acting than they can on stage. Things on stage, it's a lot more standing. It's not cats. They're not bouncing around all over the place.
Retakes and everything can be done.
Right.
And, yep.
So, but anywho, so yeah. Skyfall.
Skyfall is the choice just for a bunch of reasons. And
okay.
Yep.
Huh.
I didn't want to do Quantum because I feel like Quantum really needs to be watched after Casino Royale.
I think that might be the one we may split pretty hard on.
Maybe.
And Skyfall, I don't know. Skyfall. Yeah. But yeah, okay. All right.
We'll see what the future brings on this one.
Woo, the future. All right, any last words?
No, like I said, I think I wouldn't say pleasantly surprised with Thunderball, but I certainly wasn't uh painfully sitting through the film.
Mm.
I wouldn't say it was better than anticipated, but it certainly was not as bad as I was anticipating it to be. So kind of thankful to watch it again and just maybe see it in a bit of a new light, and ready to move on though. Like I am looking forward to seeing some of the other Connery and maybe see how they stack up to this. But I will be kind of keeping a tab maybe to see what other callbacks maybe do connect to Thunderball, since I kind of was able to piece together some of these other things.
Mm.
So yeah. And how about
Okay.
you?
Nothing. That's I really. Yeah, I guess it's come out how I if I could talk, end it how I came out, and just be like, yeah, it wasn't like the most interesting, but it wasn't the worst.
Mhm.
So, yay, not the worst, I guess.
To
That's something.
mediocrity.
Right. Here's a mediocrity, and that's all for Thunderball, folks. Uh, yeah, that's all I had in the chamber for that one. Anywho, thanks for listening, and we will return.